Hello and welcome to Buffy and the Art of Story. Today I'm talking about Angel Season 1, Episode 5, Room with a View, where Cordelia gets a rent-controlled apartment with just a few tiny problems, including a homicidal ghost. If you are looking for episodes about Buffy the Vampire Slayer, you can find every episode from the pilot, Welcome to the Hellmouth and the Harvest, to the season finale chosen by scrolling back in this podcast feed, or you can find them on YouTube or on my author website at lisalilly.com. And there's more bonus Buffy content for members of my Patreon community at patreon.com/LisaMLilly. And I am Lisa M. Lilly, author of supernatural thrillers, traditional detective mysteries, and the Writing as a Second Career books for fiction writers. In addition to the recap, I'll talk about how Cordelia's inner conflict makes this horror story work so well, Cordelia's arc back to the person we knew in Buffy, but with a lot more layers. The intertwining of a strong main plot with two compelling subplots and how that makes the episode move quickly. Themes of punishment, redemption, and facing your fears. And my rating of the episode on a scale from 1 to 10. There are no spoilers in this episode for Angel, but I will talk about events that occur throughout Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Okay, let's dive into the Hellmouth, or maybe just Los Angeles. Room with a View, which is spelled capital RMW/A capital VU, aired the first time November 2, 1999. It was written by Jane Espenson and David Greenwalt and directed by Scott McGinnis. It starts with not one, not two, but 3 opening conflicts, all there to quickly draw the viewers into the character's world. At Angel Investigations, Cordelia has had it with cheap trash bags that break easily, and Doyle, watching her reenact her commercial audition, believes it completely. Cordelia complains that a blonde in a tight catsuit got the part. She was supposed to be a housewife. She looked like Catwoman taking out the trash. Cordelia's struggle with her acting career is the first opening conflict that draws us in. Next, the phone rings. The machine gets it, and this is back when most businesses used answering machines and most people, and the person would leave a message and it would play, so you could listen to it while they were talking. It is Aura from Sunnydale, and Cordelia does not pick up. When Doyle questions that, she tells him if she talks to Aura, she'll have to talk about how things are in her life, and she is, quote, not up for leading the parade of pain, end quote. She's had no acting work. Her apartment is horrible. Doyle offers his place if she ever needs to get away for a night, and Cordelia says, well, stranger things have happened. No, wait, they really haven't. And she leaves. Now we get to the third, very minor conflict. Doyle asks Angel to give him some inside info on Cordelia. He is having a hard time getting to know her. Angel finally talks about Cordelia in high school and a group he calls the Cordettes, a term that was never actually used in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but I believe it did appear in the screenplays. Angel calls them wealthy girls who ran the school. And he says they are, quote, like the Soviet secret police if they really cared a lot about shoes, end quote. But then Cordelia's parents lost all their money. Angel says Cordelia, though, is doing all right. And this is an ironic transition to the next scene because we cut to Cordelia's apartment. Things definitely not all right. Rust-colored water comes out of the faucet and sprays all over her shirt. Cockroaches crawl on the TV. She calls the landlord to complain because the exterminators were supposed to be out, and then realizes not only are there live cockroaches everywhere, there are dead ones as well. And we get the story spark or inciting incident that sets the main plot of Cordelia finding a new apartment in motion because she is so desperate, she calls Doyle. This will set off a chain of events that leads her to a haunted apartment. Now there is a spark for a subplot. Doyle comes home to his apartment. He hears the phone, probably Cordelia, but before he can answer, a demon jumps out at him from the shadows, and we go to credits. So a lot going on in those first few minutes. On return, the demon tells Doyle he's there to collect the money that Doyle owes. Doyle claims he's got it right here in a drawer. The demon says he hopes Doyle is not dumb enough to have a gun in there. Well, Doyle is not that dumb, but he does pull out the drawer and smack the demon really hard with it and run. There is a big tone shift to the next scene. Classical music plays, very tranquil. In Angel's beautifully decorated apartment, we hear the shower running. Someone bangs on the door. Angel comes out with a towel wrapped around his waist. Cordelia enters talking and pulling a rolling suitcase. She directs Angel to get the other one from the hall and tells him all about the cockroaches that are, quote, all feet and creepy antlers, end quote. Angel is unsure about the antler thing. I get what she means, though. She tells him she'll have to stay with him. Not that he was a last resort, but she didn't have anywhere else to go. And she can stay on the couch or his bedroom, whatever he feels is right. So very Cordelia. She'll be there until she gets a new apartment. And when she does, he's totally invited in. She finishes off with saying she needs a shower. Quote, "You have mousse? Of course you do." End quote. Doyle comes over a bit later and is shocked to see Cordelia at the kitchen table in a bathrobe, combing out her damp hair. Angel complains that she got peanut butter in the bed. She says he must have done it, and he points out he does not eat. When she steps out of the room, Doyle gets angry because Angel didn't give him a chance with Cordelia, and he says, "Come on, you know I was crazy about her, and I was wearing her down too. But no, handsome, brooding vampire guy has to swoop in, all sensitive mouth and overhanging forehead. How about leaving some scraps for the homely-looking fellas who don't turn evil when they get some?" Angel responds, "Cordelia stayed over because something's wrong with her place. I was on the sofa." And Doyle says, "Oh, that's okay, I suppose." So I guess this was the next morning after Cordelia stayed. That dialogue is a great way to get out exposition, remind the viewers about Angel and his curse. I don't really love the "I was wearing her down" theme of it. It plays into that idea that if a woman's not interested, a man should just keep trying and trying and trying and eventually exhaust her into going out with him. When Cordelia walks back in, Doyle asks if anyone called looking for his address. Cordelia tells him yes, his cousin from his part of England, apparently meaning Ireland. And she's taken aback when Doyle complains about her not warning him. Angel takes all this in and he notices the bruise on Doyle's hand. He goes upstairs to the office. Cordelia takes a knife to the linoleum in the kitchen area to see if there's hardwood underneath, a nice foreshadowing of what she looks for in an apartment, because she says she might be there a while. Doyle notices all her high school memorabilia, her trophies, that her diploma is burned. She tells him it was a rough ceremony. Nice callback to graduation day. And I love that because that was the last episode of Buffy that Cordelia appeared in. Angel calls down the stairs that someone's up there looking for Doyle. Doyle pretends to head to the office but tries to sneak out the back. Angel intercepts him and insists on knowing what's going on. Doyle fills Angel in. He says he knows who the demon is collecting for. People owe Doyle. Doyle owes other people. He can make it all balance, but he needs some time, and he asks Angel for help. It's around 12 minutes through the episode, and we are hitting the first major plot turn. Angel says he'll help Doyle if Doyle helps him with his problem, and his is much bigger than a demon. Cordelia appears and asks about linoleum glue in case that tile starts curling up. She walks off. Angel tells Doyle to find her an apartment. And I love the visual use here of Angel alluding to his problem being bigger than a demon and Cordelia appearing. There is a lot of visual storytelling in this episode. I'm sure there always is. I just don't always pick up on it. And it was particularly striking with that moment and that contrast from Cordelia's apartment to Doyle's apartment to the tranquility of Angel's apartment. This turn, as it should, comes from outside the protagonist, which here is Cordelia, spins the story in a new direction, finding Cordelia a place to live, and it does end up raising the stakes because of where Cordelia ends up. Although Doyle knows a guy who can find her an apartment, Cordelia declines, so Doyle goes with her to check out the apartments that she found listings for on her own. The first is small and extremely dirty. Another one is a community where there is just a curtain around the toilet and the chanting starts at 4 a.m. And the last one features a very creepy apartment manager or landlord who asks if Cordelia will be living there alone and tells her she can rest easy knowing he'll be right across the hall and he's the only other one with a key to her apartment. Cordelia, after this experience, is finally ready to try Doyle's guy. This brought back memories for me when I was a very early 20s. My boyfriend and I were trying to find an apartment, and back then we had trouble because I would say about 75% of the places would not rent to an unmarried couple. He also was traveling a lot, so I had to go look by myself at a few, and in one of them, it was a house with an upstairs apartment, and the guy who lived in the house was so much like this guy who talks to Cordelia. I got the worst vibe from him, and even though I wasn't going to be living there alone, I told my boyfriend, no way are we moving into that apartment. And it was too bad because it was in our price range as not many things were, and we were coming really close to the end of our lease. Angel waits in Doyle's apartment and someone attacks him, presumably thinking he's Doyle. The scene cuts to a real estate agent showing Cordelia and Doyle around a beautiful, large, furnished apartment at a good price. It has a giant window, hardwood floors like Cordelia wants, and she says she used to have this and it's perfect. Then she tells Doyle she'll bring someone in to take down that wall, which divides up the living room space. He asks her how can it be perfect if she has to take down a wall, and she tells him that is the perfect part. There's just one thing to change. She hugs Doyle, really thrilled, which makes him thrilled. But as they leave, an outline of a giant face presses against the wall. It is just barely visible. Cordie and Doyle don't see it, but the audience does. The scene cuts to Angel and a demon whose name we find out is Griff. They fight. Angel gets the better of him, and Griff at last explains that his boss does not want money anymore. He wants to make an example of Doyle and kill him. Angel threatens to kill Griff unless Griff agrees to get his boss to let Doyle live. Angel says he will guarantee payment. When Angel tells Doyle that he made this agreement, Doyle is not happy, but eventually he thanks Angel. And he gets defensive when Angel asks why Doyle lives like this. Doyle says he likes to keep expectations low, and he thinks Angel understands something about that. Angel agrees he does, but he was forced into this life. Doyle has options. Doyle doesn't want to talk about it, though. He'd rather focus on the bright spots, like how happy Cordelia is. And this is another ironic transition because Cordelia in her new apartment at night is asleep, but her radio starts going on and off. It's playing the song You Only Hurt the One You Love. Drawers open and slam shut by themselves. Cordelia yells that she's not scared. She's from Sunnydale, but she spends the night huddled in her bed, which has risen off the floor and is floating. In the morning, the bed crashes down. Cordelia tries to be cheerful as she gets ready for her day, But an older woman ghost appears behind her. She has her hair in a scarf, and it looks like she has face cream on. She's semi-translucent. The furniture moves by itself around Cordelia. Things fly through the room. An electric cord wraps around Cordelia's arm. Cordelia, though somewhat frightened, responds mostly with anger and says, "You see a light anywhere? Go toward it." Then more objects fly through the room. The wind rushes through. It's freezing. All the same, when Angel and Doyle arrive to give her a housewarming plant, she tries to keep them from coming in. Then she tries to rush them out before they notice any of this. She even catches a scissors that goes flying at Angel. Oh, and I should mention, when Angel just walks right in, Cordelia's a little surprised because she didn't invite him. And he reminds her that she said whenever she found a new place, he was invited in, and she comments on these rules being all screwed up. Angel and Doyle realize pretty quickly that the apartment is haunted, something that is cemented when the word die appears on the wall in blood. Cordelia, though, does not want to leave, and one of them says to her, "It's haunted," and she responds, "It's rent controlled." Doyle suggests that they could do a cleansing spell, and he and Angel have to carry Cordelia out. We are past the midpoint of the episode. It's about 24 minutes, but we do have Cordelia making a major commitment. So there was a reversal there, how bad things are in the apartment. So that comes first. And a little after the midpoint, Cordelia says, "I'll die before I give up this apartment." Cordelia's already out, but the ghost says, "All right then, whatever you think is best." At the office, Doyle researches the building. Angel tries to convince Cordelia she should just move out. But she says if it goes away, it's like she's still being punished for how awful she was to people in high school and all the things she did just because she could get away with them. Then she lost everything and she was being punished. But if she keeps the apartment, she says, quote, "I can be me again. Punishment over," end quote. It's like she couldn't be too bad if she gets a place like that. And this is where we see that despite Cordelia's outward confidence and that she outwardly most of the time appears like the Cordelia we knew in Buffy, she is really struggling. She's struggling with doubt. She's struggling with feeling like she is a bad person. Doyle learns that a woman named Maud Pearson built the apartment building and moved into a unit in it with her son. She died at age 57 of a heart attack. Cordelia thinks this will be easy, little old lady ghost. Now that I'm older than that, I am really appalled by the idea of calling someone 57 a little old lady. Though in Cordelia's defense, I don't know if she's seen the ghost does look like a little old lady. Angel has his doubts. This was not a violent death, but he heads to the police station to see if Kate knows anything. If you enjoy traditional detective mysteries, especially ones featuring female protagonists, it is a great time to check out the ebook box set of the first 3 mysteries in my QC Davis series. 3 gripping mysteries, 1 relentless detective. Meet Quill C. Davis, Chicago attorney, private investigator, and a woman driven by justice and grief. In this powerful box set, follow Quill through her first 3 unforgettable cases as she uncovers long-buried secrets, faces down ruthless killers, and risks everything to protect the people she loves. In The Worried Man, Quill finds her boyfriend dead, and the police call it suicide. But Quill's gut says otherwise. As she digs into his past with the help of his teenage son, she uncovers a tangle of lies, legal scandals, and deadly secrets. Can she clear his name before she becomes the next target? In The Charming Man, a winter storm traps Quill in a snowbound apartment complex with a group of frightened residents and a killer. What started as a search for a missing college girl who may have overstayed her student visa becomes a desperate race to stop a murderer before anyone else ends up dead. And in The Fractured Man, a midnight call from a childhood friend pulls Quill into the shadowy world of Seminar, a self-improvement group with a deadly edge. To clear her friend's name, she'll have to go undercover and trust no one. Smart, suspenseful, and deeply emotional, these mysteries feature an unforgettable female sleuth and vivid Chicago settings, perfect for fans of psychological suspense and complex crime fiction. Start the QC Davis series now with this value-packed box set and discover why readers can't put it down. And this week only, if you're listening as this episode releases, that box set is on a super special for just 99 cents instead of the regular $9.99 price. Find links in the show notes or at my author website, lisalilly.com. Doyle says he has a guy who can help with the supplies for the cleansing spell, and Cordelia asks, is that the same guy who got her the poltergeist-delicious apartment? Can't blame Cordelia for that. In the next scene, Cordelia is at the office at night and she gets a call from Angel. He tells her to meet him at the apartment. The scene cuts to Kate at the police station, commenting to Angel that he's not really a detective because detectives have licenses and last names. Only pop stars and popes go by a first name. And Angel says, you got me, I'm a pope. Though she is giving him a hard time, it's really good-natured. She's curious, but she is helping him, and she finds information about Maud's son, Dennis. He skipped town the same day she died, and the police did investigate this as a suspicious death. There was a lot of conflict between Dennis and his mother over his fiancée. She checks, though, and there were no other murders in the apartment over the years. Angel then suggests she look for suicides, probably because of that electrical cord wrapping around Cordelia. He tells Kate there's a killer who makes murder look like suicide, and it turns out there were lots of apparent suicides in that apartment over the years. Angel now thinks that the son, Dennis, murdered his mother, Maud, and made it look like a heart attack, and he calls the office. Doyle enters as the phone rings, and he answers by saying, Angel Investigations, we hope you're helpless, a mangling of the tagline Cordelia created. He tells Angel Cordelia's not there, and then he plays the answering machine. It recorded the entire call, which answering machines back then would do if you did not remember to switch them off when you picked up. Angel tells Doyle that was not him on the phone. At the apartment, Cordelia discovers that Maud mimicked Angel's voice. Maud berates Cordelia. It's clear to us that she thinks Cordelia is her son Dennis's fiancée. She calls Cordelia a cheap tramp, trying to seem better than she is. She tells Cordelia she doesn't deserve to live there. Cordelia becomes more and more distraught, more so by the things Maud is saying than all the chaos Maud is causing around her. And by the time Doyle and Angel burst in, they find Cordelia hanging from a noose made of electrical cable. But she is still barely breathing. Doyle and Angel get her down and revive her. They start the exorcism or cleansing as Cordelia sobs. Debris flies, interrupting them more than once. Angel tries to get Cordelia to fight. He tells her she connected with the ghost. She's part of the ghost's delusion, which gives her power. And he says she's Cordelia Chase. But Cordelia is a mess. She is convinced the ghost is right about her, and at one point she says, she knows me. Angel and Doyle keep shouting the words of the spell over the wind, but it's becoming more and more dangerous, and they finally agree they have to get Cordelia out. But before they can, the door flies open, and Griff and two cronies point giant guns at Angel and Doyle. When Angel reminds Griff he agreed to let Doyle pay, Griff just says, I lied. The previous scene, I went through it quickly, but there is so much going on, so much danger to everyone that it feels like it's the climax of the episode where the opposing forces have their final confrontation. But it is only about 3/4 through the episode, and instead of being the climax, we have another plot turn because now Doyle's subplot interacts with the main plot, and the demon debt collectors are there for Doyle. They fight Angel and Doyle. The ghost fights them as well. So it's almost like this really scary free-for-all because the ghost does not want all these people in her home. There is a huge battle, and we do move into the climax, which is between Cordelia and Maud. So Angel and Doyle keep fighting the demons in the living room. Maud drags Cordelia into the bedroom and shuts her in there. Cordelia is now crying. She's on the floor. She's begging to be let go. She's promising to leave. And we know that she just feels this is a continuation of that punishment. And it's a judgment that no, she has not been forgiven. She is a really bad person. And this is just her life now, and that it is all her fault. She doesn't say these things, but because of her earlier dialogue and how distraught and defeated she is, we can infer all of that, and that is what makes it frightening. Ghost Maud tells her it's too late. She knew Cordelia wasn't good enough for her son, and he should have smelled the stench of poverty on her. And earlier, I didn't mention it, but when Cordelia came to Angel's, she said that she not only was living in these cockroaches, but that she needed a shower, and she smelled. And she says, I didn't even know I could smell. So this ghost is hitting all the things that Cordelia feels and fears about herself. But then Maud makes a fatal mistake. She calls Cordelia a stupid bitch and tells her she knows what to do. Get that bedsheet and make a noose. And Cordelia, still on the floor, says, I'm a bitch. And Maud misses that change in tone and keeps trying to prompt Cordelia to hang herself. Instead, Cordelia stands. She's not a whiny, snivelly little cry Buffy. She takes crap from no one and says, back off, Polygrip. The ghost is shoved away, and Cordelia says, lady, the bitch is back. And she tells her, or yells, get the hell out of my house. The ghost gives up and dissipates. Cordelia stalks out of the bedroom as Angel snaps Griff's neck. That seems like the end of the climax. Cordelia has prevailed in the main plot, and Angel and Doyle more or less prevailed, or at least prevailed for now in the subplot. But there is a surprise ending because Maud's story is not done, and now we find out the truth about it. Cordelia, looking possessed, her eyes luminous, grabs a cast iron lamp and knocks down that wall she wanted to get rid of when she first saw the apartment. Inside is a skeleton that is disintegrating. Ghost Maud appears again and screams. And in a flashback, which the whole team apparently sees, Maud bricks her son Dennis into the wall alive to keep him from leaving with his fiancée. Dennis begs her to stop. He promises he'll stay, but Maud will not relent. It fades into her hanging a picture on the newly spackled and painted wall, but then she grabs her chest in pain and dies. In the present, Ghost Maud tells her son that the girl would have ruined his life. She did it for him. Ghost Dennis roars and swoops out toward his mother, attacks her, and she disappears forever. That resolves the Maud and Dennis subplot, and this is part of the falling action where we tie up any loose ends and resolve subplots. And maybe more accurately, the Maud and Dennis issue is a loose end. Cordelia defeating Maud took care of the main plot with Cordelia triumphant, but this ties up that loose end of what really happened way back then. And we find out Dennis didn't kill his mother killed him. The scene cuts to Angel watching Doyle install a new deadbolt on Doyle's apartment door. Angel says he'll need to hear Doyle's story eventually. Doyle agrees, but he's not ready yet. At her beautiful new apartment, Cordelia talks on the phone. She's sitting on a lovely couch in front of a giant arched window. So pretty, and she raves to Aura about the beautiful new apartment and her job, building everything up, making it seeming even more glamorous, and her acting. And she says she has a roommate, but she never sees him. Then she tells Phantom Dennis to put her soda back when he moves it, and then that it's quiet time whenever she's on the phone because he flips on the TV, but he flips it off again and he replaces the soda, and it seems like a friendly and good-natured relationship. Cordelia is very happy as she gossips with Aura about someone in Sunnydale who was always nasty and had bad taste in clothes. And that is the end of the episode. The plot and subplots worked so well here, and the pace was quick. Cordelia is the protagonist, despite that we get a lot of other points of view. To have a really strong protagonist, you generally want that character to have an active goal that they pursue, be the main point of view character, and have the most at stake. And Cordelia here has the most active goal. She needs to get a new apartment, one that's nice, but that she can afford. So it's also a difficult goal. That's not strictly necessary for a protagonist, but you need it for a strong plot. Cordelia has very little money. We see by where she's living that her options are really limited. And she not only needs a safer place without cockroaches, she needs something nicer to preserve her sense of self. She is the main point of view character when it comes to that apartment plot, though we do sometimes see her from Doyle's perspective and from Angel's. And she definitely has the most at stake, not just a safe place to live and a clean place to live, but her whole self and self-image and her life when she is in that apartment. Now, there are a couple of subplots here. Doyle has one about evading the demon who is trying to first collect from him and then kill him. This is somewhat reactive. Doyle's goal is to get away, not even necessarily to solve that problem. He wants Angel's help just in stretching out the time frame, with the idea that somehow he'll make things balance out. So it wouldn't be quite as good if it were a main plot, because mostly Doyle is trying to run away. But he does have a lot at stake, including his life, and he is the main point of view character in that, although it is split with Angel, who steps in and does quite a bit. And when it comes to a subplot, that can work better. If you have a main plot where it's split between two characters, that can be tricky for an audience to follow. They can follow it, but they don't know who to identify with, or they don't get as invested in either of the two characters. For a subplot, though, that is fine because we're jumping in and out of it. We see how distraught Doyle is and how much danger he's in, and we're engaged with it. Angel's subplot is to get Cordelia out of his apartment. So it's a little bit reactive in that he just wants to get away from her, but he is a more active character generally than Doyle. He is going to deal head on with Doyle's problem so that Doyle will get Cordelia a place to stay. And in his subplot, Angel is the main point of view character. He goes to Doyle's. We see him in the apartment alone. He helps Doyle fight at the end. He negotiates for Doyle. He's also really active in Cordelia's plot. in the sense that he is the one who goes to the police station to talk to Kate. He does a lot of the fighting. This often happens when you have a series where you've got a series protagonist like Angel or like Buffy, but the episode is largely about a side character. Typically, our series protagonist still plays a big role. And here it works because both Cordelia and Doyle are doing everything that they can do as the protagonists in their own stories. And one thing they can do is seek help from their powerful friend. And that is fine to have your protagonist do as long as your protagonist is also active and is pursuing their own goal. Angel has a lot less at stake than Doyle or Cordelia, which is probably why in some ways his subplot is the smallest. I didn't even really see it as a subplot until I started breaking this down and looking really closely. And that's because Angel's life isn't really at risk. I mean, sure, at the end, fighting 3 demons with guns, potentially one of them could stake Angel. But for the most part, what's at stake for Angel is his peace of mind, his tranquil apartment. What is so great about these subplots is the way they intersect with the main plot and help keep it moving. When it comes down to it, Cordelia's plot is not that involved. In some ways, not that much happens. She has a bad time at her first apartment. She goes to see these other apartments. All of them are completely unsuitable. She goes into this beautiful apartment, and then we have a number of scenes that, if we just strung them back to back, could feel a bit repetitive. It's the ghost scaring Cordelia, amping up the danger to her, sending more flying objects. It's pretty much, okay, another scene where she's trying to get Cordelia to kill herself or wrap something around Cordelia's neck or tell Cordelia she's worthless, and it definitely escalates. It gets worse and worse. But if we put that all together, it probably would feel like too long of a scene or too much repetition in the same setting, hitting those same actions and words and themes. But because we have it intercut with the concerns about Doyle and Angel going to see Kate and these demons coming after them and escalating that final conflict, it is a fast-paced episode and it keeps that main plot intriguing and compelling. And of course, Cordelia's emotions make this plot really strong because while similar things keep happening, she falls apart more and more, and we understand more as an audience why this is so devastating for her. Turning to theme, what is Room with a View saying about life, about the world that the characters live in? The strongest theme is this idea, and it's very human, that people, when bad things happen to them, tend to feel as if they did something wrong, that they are being punished, that they deserve it. And Cordelia really struggles with that. And it's so interesting to juxtapose that with Angel, who is actively seeking redemption. He has taken stock of his actions as a vampire before he had his soul returned, and he is actively trying to atone. And Angel really was punished. The gypsies cursed him with his soul as a means of revenge so that he would feel the pain of what he had done, would suffer as his victims had suffered. So he is actually being punished. At the same time, this was such a wonderful thing for Angel. It returned to him the choice to act differently. Before that, without his soul, he presumably could not choose to just be the equivalent of a good person. With the return of the soul, he has that choice. He can seek atonement. In contrast, Cordelia, she is not being punished as much as she feels like it. Her parents, specifically I think her father is mentioned, did not handle his taxes right. We found that out in Buffy, and she was basically collateral damage for that. And if she had come to LA and done well as an actress fairly quickly, if things had worked out the way most things in her life do, it would have been this blip, and she may have briefly felt, oh, is this happening to me because I was so terrible to people in high school? But things would have gotten better, and that would not have taken root in her psyche. But things got progressively worse. There was the little bump up of working with Angel, and this has definitely helped, but her apartment is unlivable. She is not getting work that she wants, and she feels like this is a judgment on her. As some of you know, for some time I have been rehabbing or recovering from an injury to my tendons that affects my ankle. And one thing that I've done throughout is to really limit how much alcohol I drink as I literally get back on my feet. Because as you can imagine, when you're on a air cast and then a brace, and then you're trying to walk normally again, your balance is really thrown off. So I want to give my brain every opportunity to kind of do things right. And this is one of many reasons that I am really thrilled to be able to offer my listeners a discount, the largest discount there is available on Ritual Zero Proof. Ritual Zero Proof delivers the flavor and the fun of traditional spirits without the alcohol. If you go to ritualzeroproof.com/Buffy Story and use the promo code Buffy Story, all one word, at checkout, you'll get 16% off any product. I earn a commission when you use that code, and you get the best price. Going back to the episode on grief in the Buffyverse when I talked to Tiffany Nieheiser, I do think it's partly an example of we feel like we're being punished in a way to feel some sense of control. If you're being punished for something, that's why the bad thing happened. Then you can do better in the future and maybe avoid future terrible things. Cordelia, though, largely because of this ghost playing on all of these insecurities and all Cordelia's fears and guilt, goes way beyond that into genuinely believing for a time that she is just a bad person who doesn't deserve for things to get better and who can't do anything to make it better. The episode offers hope, however, which is that by finding your core of who you are again, by standing up, Cordelia literally stands up and facing those fears, pushing back against, here it's a ghost saying these things, but it is Cordelia also pushing against herself, that inner narrative. By yelling back, getting angry, standing up for herself, she defeats the ghost, and she defeats those fears and doubts and becomes herself again. Doyle's subplot echoes some of these themes, and it's great if you can do that as a writer, have your subplot mirror the main plot conflict, because Doyle is not ready yet. He's not ready to face his doubts, his fears, his feelings that he doesn't deserve more. We don't know if Doyle feels he's being punished, but there is definitely a sense that he does not think he deserves a better life. That's why he keeps his expectations low. Angel is in the best emotional shape here. He is the one who has come to terms with his past actions and what he chooses to do going forward. All three of these characters have compelling character arcs to move to the next part of the analysis. I love Cordelia in this episode. She has the best lines throughout, and she has this arc that starts with her outwardly seeming like what I think of as herself. Sure, she doesn't talk to Aura, so we know she has that, hey, I don't want to talk about my life until it gets better. But that that presupposes a belief that it will get better. She's feeling discouraged, but she still believes it'll get better. And when she comes to angels, she proceeds with her usual lack of self-awareness, lack of inconveniencing others. She expects Angel to haul her suitcases and give her the bed, and she gets peanut butter in it, and she pulls up his linoleum, oblivious to how she is disrupting his life. And then we see these cracks. We see that underneath that exterior, which may be a facade, probably is a facade, she has all these doubts and fears. And then not only does she first acknowledge them to Angel, she plunges deeper and deeper into that and then comes back out, has that arc where she comes out. She is Cordelia Chase again. She embraces that. Now, I like to think that while she embraces being a bitch, being powerful, that she's also come through this more layered, probably with more compassion for other people. And if she were once again in the types of situations she had in high school, she probably would not behave exactly the way she did then. She wouldn't be a totally different person, but she'd probably be a little bit more layered and have learned from this experience. Cordelia's arc is what makes the episode so powerful and what makes the horror scary. Without Maud's psychological warfare, this would just be a bunch of stuff flying around the apartment. And yes, it's scary that she's able to wrap the electrical cable around Cordelia and almost kill her. But it just wouldn't feel that frightening. The terror comes from the vulnerability of Cordelia, and the vulnerability is rooted in her emotions. If the characters do not feel vulnerable and are not vulnerable, then it's not horror. If it's Angel coming into a haunted house and he just has to physically evade these knives flying at him and do a spell and get rid of the ghost, and he's never really in emotional danger, it isn't scary. It's maybe suspenseful. Will he win this battle? But it doesn't really make us feel his fear. Cordelia feels that fear, and so do we, because of her inner journey. Doyle, too, has an arc. He doesn't arc as much, but he starts completely running from his problems. He does accept Angel's help, but very reluctantly, and he's mad at first that Angel guaranteed payment and made this deal, and he moves to understanding that he does have to face things and that ultimately he will need to share more about himself with Angel. This, as I mentioned, wouldn't make a super strong plot because there isn't quite enough there, but it is a solid, strong subplot. And Doyle is a great example of you can have a character who is unable at this point when we see them to take big actions, unable to make big leaps in growth. Cordelia makes a pretty big leap in this episode. Doyle takes a tiny step, but because that is the most that he can do, it is still engaging and compelling. And that's something to think about if you are writing a story about a character who is somewhat stunted emotionally or who is hampered by their past and who isn't ready to make what others might see as a big dramatic shift or change. You need to show why for that character those small steps are a really big deal. Angel changes the least here. I don't think he really changes at all, but his relationship with Kate moves forward. It's right now a relationship of colleagues, but they are moving toward greater mutual respect, perhaps toward friendship. I like their dynamic. In this episode, Kate still has a lot of questions about Angel, and she makes that clear, but she does view him as worth helping and someone who is more or less on the right side. Moving on to world building, not many changes in the Buffyverse here, but Cordelia's arc expands on her character and her role in Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Yes, we did see Cordelia as more layered as the 3 seasons went on. In the beginning, she seemed more like a generic mean girl, and we got to know a lot of things about Cordelia. There was much more to her than it appeared at first. But this episode gives us the most we have ever gotten of Cordelia's internal life, and it is part of why she can serve as one of the main characters in Angel, where in Buffy she was a side character, an important one, but not as integral to the team as Willow or Xander or Giles. And here, after Angel, she is the most key character, and it is earned here. It is also fun to get that glimpse of Buffy through Cordelia's eyes. To her, she is strong, and Buffy is a whiny, snivelly little cry Buffy. I had to really think about, why does Cordelia see Buffy that way? In seasons 1 through 3, Cordelia sees Buffy, or at least is aware of Buffy having a number of really serious emotional setbacks. And the audience certainly sees Buffy cry, not all the time, as Cordelia would imply, but at those key moments. And it is so moving. Sarah Michelle Gellar is so good at that. And it is earned each time. When she breaks down, she's sobbing, and Willow is holding her. And she says she can't breathe after Angel breaks up with her. When she has to kill Angel in the end of season 2, she doesn't break down sobbing, but we see, I think it's a single tear and that heartbreak in her face, but she does it anyway. This is really strong, but Cordelia doesn't necessarily see that side of Buffy. And Cordelia is the protagonist in her life, just as Buffy is the protagonist in Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So when we see it through Buffy's eyes, we see Buffy's strength. We see that depth of emotion, that this is not weakness. From Cordelia's eyes in Cordelia's show, Buffy seems overdramatic, over-emotional. Cordelia's emotional as well, but it rarely manifests as tears or crying. In this episode is pretty much it. When Xander betrays her, she isn't crying. She's clearly upset, but she tells him to go away, and she burns his pictures. Cordelia is more apt to react in anger, and that is her strength, and that's what she regains. That all fits with Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but it expands the universe in a way because we get that picture of Buffy as Cordelia sees her, and how Cordelia juxtaposes her way of dealing with things with Buffy's. The rules in this episode are pretty consistent. We do find out that a across-the-board invitation, hey, whenever I get a place, you're invited in, is enough to allow a vampire in. I don't think that came up at all in Buffy. So likely the writers are wanting to make it clear that it doesn't have to be an invitation to a specific place that the person already owns. I don't remember if that comes up later in the show or not, but it seems like there must be some reason they want to expand a little bit and make clear that rule is pretty broad, allows some leeway. Now to the last part, my rating of the show on a scale from 1 to 10, with 10 being my very favorite Buffy episodes, and about 3.5 being my least favorite Buffy episodes, like Where the Wild Things Are. I rate Room with a View at a 9. It is not quite a 10 because that subplot with the demons, while I liked it, was a bit too convenient. The fact that they come into Cordelia's apartment, they don't intercept Doyle when he's alone, when it would be much easier to kill him. They don't intercept them on the way to Cordelia's. They come in right when there is this pitched battle going on. It ups the tension and the conflict, but it's a little bit convenient. In addition, while the subplots do help keep that main plot moving, when I look at the main plot, it is a little bit repetitive. I actually had trouble when I was breaking down with, oh wait, is this the point where she ends up hung by the electrical cable? And here is when the electrical cord wrapped around her. when did Maud say this and when did Maud say that? Because there is a lot of similarity. While I was watching it, none of that bothered me. I always remember this episode fondly and look forward to rewatching, but I couldn't quite go to a 10 for those reasons. I am very happy that it leaves all our three characters in pretty good places. Cordelia, very happy again, feels like herself. Angel has his tranquility back, and he is connecting more, both with Cordelia and with Doyle. He was really there for both of them, and he is reaching out emotionally to Doyle. And Doyle has made that little bit of progress, has taken some steps toward becoming closer to Angel and Cordelia and revealing a little more of himself. Plus, I do just love Cordelia's apartment. It is so beautiful, and I love a beautiful setting. That is it for this episode. I would love to hear your thoughts on Room with a View or Angel or Buffy. If you have things you want to share, you can email me at buffystorypod@gmail.com or comment on YouTube or on Patreon. Thank you for listening, and a special thank you to the patrons who support the podcast. Come back in 2 weeks for Angel Season 4, Episode 6, Sense and Sensitivity, where Angel goes undercover to help Kate, and sensitivity training creates chaos at the police precinct, putting lives in danger. You can find back episodes of Buffy and the Art of Story, as well as the Buffy and the Art of Story books and all my fiction at lisalily.com. To support the podcast, hear extra bonus content, and get each regular episode a few days early, join the Patreon community at patreon.com/Lisa M. Lilly. That's Lisa, M as in Marie, Lilly. Music for this episode was written and performed by Robert Newcastle. Buffy and the Art of Story is a production of Spiny Woman LLC, copyright 2025. All rights reserved.